everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today on this day, I have the pleasure of sitting down with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Callie Richardson. He is an author, speaker, consultant, out here getting folks to live their best lives, their genuine self, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with him, learning more about the work that he is doing. But first and foremost, as I always do, sir, I'll take a quick moment to pause and say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So I truly appreciate you setting aside this time to talk to me. And with that, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, you are a very multifaceted gentleman, and you've got a lot going on. So I'm gonna try to unpack as much as I can, as much as I can today in this short time. Pray for me. Pray for me. But one of the things I want to start off talking about is one of your niche areas is millennials, of which I'm assuming that you are. Um, and me being Gen X, sometimes there's some friction with the various generations. But speak to us or give us some input, some understanding. What are some of the challenges that the millennials face that the rest of the generations just don't understand or have perspective of?
I don't know if this would necessarily be in the standpoint of others may not understand because I can't necessarily speak for others' experiences, but when it comes down to it, gatekeeping is one of them, right? And so for me, it's when my mom and my dad did whatever they had to do to give me the life that they gave me, the world was one way. This is
Mm.
back when, Nextel, the I-80s were out.
Chirp.
Exactly. And so life is different. The world is different. And so I know between just from a family relationship standpoint that I'm also seeing in the workforce and I'm also seeing across with my peers is that as I tell my family, I'm like, hey, you did X, Y, Z for me to be here, right? You did everything you could do so I could be Dr. Richardson. So at some point in certain areas, the pyramid gets flipped upside down. So from a parent perspective or from a senior perspective, you get the respect that you're due for your station.
Mm-hmm.
For your station. If your
Mm-hmm.
station hasn't moved in 20 years and mine has elevated, there's also a respect coming both ways. So I see that in the workforce a lot where I may be talking or saying something and I don't run around screaming, oh, Dr. Richardson, right? So I just kind of say what I think and so on and so forth. And I do get a lot of pushback from the older generation of, well, who are you? What do you know? Well, I'm glad you asked. You have to flip the card over. Here's all my credentials, right? So I'm not speaking from a space of this is what I feel, this is what I know, right? This is what I've researched, this is what I've studied. And so gatekeeping tends to be a hard part because for someone to dedicate 20, 30 years of their life in one job, then just move out the way for somebody else to take their
Uh,
space,
gotcha.
or that's challenging. In my generation, we don't do that. 2 years, I'm up or I'm out.
Mm,
Like
gotcha.
like the forever home is nice, but I'd rather have multiple properties, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, with the world being different, I see that being one of the probably hardest challenges for me individually to navigate is necessarily thinking that I'm going to sit in one organization, no matter the outcome, for 20, 30 years when I'm not being valued, when I'm not doing what I love, when I'm not being impacted because of the blessings of my parents and the generation before me. I'm able to say, you know what, this is great. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just breaking down some of those, I guess you could say, those norms that have existed 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, and then it started changing around that time where those practices in the workforce, those practices in the family, those practices in community shift.
Mm-hmm.
And as the generation behind, or say the generation in front of me, start to ease off, and we're stepping into those parent roles and those leadership
Gotcha.
roles. Once we're in the roles, we get to change the rules. But until we get to cross that hump, that's where I think a lot of the friction is. It's just trying to get to the space and say, hey, again, the I-80 was great, but my iPhone is my iPhone.
Yeah, gotcha. Now you've mentioned some of your family, the benefits your family has, provided for you to get you where you are. And I do want to let everybody know that you are from the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I have collected quite a few friends over the years from various Caribbean cultures. Does that add a different layer of dynamics when we discuss millennials, Gen X?
Very much so. Very much so. I can't speak for the other islands. At least for me in the Virgin Islands, a lot of it was dated. And like we're technically a second world country, but we're only that because we're a territory. And
Mm-hmm.
the other islands in the West Indies, some of them aren't territories, right? Some of them are independent to themselves. So rather that means, you know, having something as simple as Wi-Fi. Like I remember growing up walking past the Kmart just to get some AC,
Mm-hmm.
having running water in the home, having a consistent power grid, having federal aid, HUD housing, like all some of the things that are in America that are intended to help that often don't do the job equitably or like logistically when it comes down to inflation of those things. Most of us in the West Indies don't have it at all.
Mm.
And so it's like, from my experience, I heard some people, feeling how they felt about it. And I was like, I wish I just had the option. That'd be great. But also that West Indian culture, I'm pretty sure anybody who comes from there knows hard work is another day. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not uncommon to be, for what us is hard work may be unreasonable for our American counterparts.
Yeah.
Um, and that doesn't say that one way is better than the other. It's just, you could say a boon that
Mm-hmm.
comes from that area.
So mom and dad would have not received it well if you just came one day and said, I don't think I'm going to go to college anymore.
I don't. It's a great question. I don't know what they would say. I assume they wouldn't be happy about it, but I know like me, the individual, was driven to go to college because I didn't want to go to the military. My dad was in the Navy, 29 years, Master Chief. Didn't want to go to the military. Didn't know of any trade. I was an athlete. That's how I,
Okay.
came to the States and stuff like that. That's how I got to school, playing sports. And so I just wanted to, go pro, right? Live the dream.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I got into college, I realized like there's more than being an athlete. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't this now you see student organizations at the high school level, but they weren't when I was in school. So I didn't
Oh,
really know about student organizations or clubs or anything like that until I got to college.
okay.
And it wasn't even at the college that I was at. It was at a friend's college of mine that I went to go hang out with. And I was like, what's CAD? What's SGA? What's Greek life? What's this? What's
Um,
that? And then I was like, oh, seems pretty cool. And so I transferred and learned about all the stuff that I now speak about.
okay, gotcha,
So
gotcha.
yeah,
Okay. Well, let me segue here a little bit for what you went to college for. I'm assuming, because I
hmm
was, as I mentioned earlier, before when we were talking and getting prepared for today, I was running around the website and I see you recently did a talk, emergency management accreditation process, and that sounds
yes,
like to me to me. So break that
yeah.
down in kindergarten terms for me.
So emergency management, you can think about emergency management. The way I like to explain it is the same as public administration, same as public health. And I say that comparison that it's everywhere. It's in everything, whether you can see it or not.
Okay.
So, and whenever you have to do evacuations from your home, flooding, thunderstorms, tornadoes, fires, terrorist attacks, COVID-19, all that Super Bowl game, all
Oh.
that is technically, yeah, planned events. All that's technically in emergency management. And so the way I like to explain it is basically project management for events slash incidences, right? Things we didn't plan or disaster. So emergency management all over the country deal with ice, snowstorms, some things I already stated before, typhoons, mudslides, the Olympics is an emergency
Okay.
management event, things like that. So for that in question, and I guess I'll quickly kind of go over how I got there and then what that is. But I got my bachelor's in exercise science, minors in public health and psychology. Thought I was going to go be a physical therapist. Got my master's in public health, graduate certificates in emergency management, where I found got bit by the bug, and infectious communicable diseases. I got into the
Mm-hmm.
field, disease expert, and then my doctorate in public administration, looking at basically organizational structures. Like I'm basically an org theorist, but I of course do within my field of practice, which is emergency management, homeland security. So within emergency management, there's only one body that can essentially evaluate and say this is good or bad. And so what you talk about specifically was part of my dissertation research to say what is good or bad, because
Mm.
in the field we can't. So out of my dissertation, three things came out of it. One, a theory of emergency management, the innovative structural theory of emergency management, and that theory can be used for anything. It can be used for public health, hospitalities, communications. It was just created for emergency management because there are no theories of emergency management. Well, there's one now, but at the time there was not. From that, I basically did research of all the evaluation components that exist within my field, and the only one existing body, EMAP, the Emergency Management Creation Program, is an actual organization, 501c3 nonprofit, that is associated with the International Association of Emergency Managers, IAEM, and they tend to hold that certification for all the programs in the country, really all the programs in the world, because it's an international standpoint. And so I just reached out to that same association and said, hey, here's a survey. What do you think? And what we found out essentially is there's a difference between perceived value and actual value. The actual value, the actual value is low. There really is no actual value outside of, in Florida, we have a recovery program in case your home gets destroyed or your business gets destroyed or something like that in a storm or flooded, that you get some point, that city or county you reside in get points if they are accredited.
Okay.
Outside of that, there is no value. On the other side of it, there was a lot of perceived value where if they got it, they can pitch it to their leadership, right? They can use it and say, look, we need more people. It was more sort of a tool to get leadership above them to understand the context of what the needs are, because emergency management isn't a highly funded resource in a lot of places. Luckily here in Florida, where I am, it is. Texas, California, New York, DC. Like there's some places where we get hit with a lot. It's hurricane season right now in Florida. We're expecting, however many storms this year. So of course there's a lot of dollars going towards this, but more rural communities just don't have the bandwidth, don't have the resources, don't have the expertise to deal with a lot of things that they're dealing with. And so they often get, what the majority of the field is, where we call it the homogeny of emergency management, is second career, first responders, normally police, fire, law enforcement, who are most likely between the ages of 55 and 75, white, male. And they're trying to serve Hispanic communities, Black communities, Native American communities, when they don't speak the language, don't understand the cultural nuances, and don't have anybody that's a trusted agent they can talk to. And so we then get upset about not being able to get the same dollar amount when our homes are destroyed from FEMA, when, again, the person at the top doesn't reflect us and our nuances or hasn't spoken to us, and so on and so forth. So I say all that to say is essentially there's only one way to see if an organization is good or bad. And out of my dissertation research, we actually created an objective tool where my 3 is your 3. So if I evaluate it and you evaluate it, we should get the same scores. Currently, how it is, it's not like that. It's more of a subjective measurement where you would read what you're looking for, and if you found it and you felt it applied, you would then highlight and say, yes, this applies. But even then, it's not graded. It's not like 1 to 5. It's, did you meet the standard? Yes. Or did you exceed it, meet it, or fail it? Pretty much it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it sounds cooler than what it is.
Of course.
It's just an Excel spreadsheet.
But I'm just thinking about how this parlays into so many different areas. So, in Florida, do insurance companies work with? Because I recently heard like Florida insurance companies are like pulling back and like, no, I mean, are they using your tools and information to kind of say, well, hey, we don't want to?
I'll say my tool specifically, I would most likely say no.
Okay.
And I would say that because it's fairly new. Also, to get an insurance company to not only look at my tool, but to look at emergency management as a whole and say this is someplace we want to be, we have to remember like it's their job to keep money, not spend money.
Okay.
And so with the number of damage we have in Florida, for example, the issue is who's going to pay to rebuild said home, right? We already have infrastructure issues. We already have a lack of mitigation efforts. There's not enough dollars to do the stuff. There's not enough people to do the stuff, but the stuff needs to be done. And there's more damage, more storms, more incidences that happens. And then they'll have, a season where 3-4 storms hit the same community in 3-week waves, and they're trying to track that, fund that, repair that. Or you have situations like Mexico Beach that the city's just wiped off the map completely. It's just sand. So it becomes a wicked problem because they involve so many different agencies, so many different people. so much money that how do we really solve that problem? Um, I would say where it comes down to is that the profession as a whole needs to be elevated. Emergency management is fairly young. It started with 9/11.
So,
Before that, it
oh,
was
okay. But you guys were around like when Katrina hit, though, right?
technically,
Just
technically,
not.
technically. So in the past, emergency management was civil defense. It was more a military function. When
Okay.
9/11 happened, that's when FEMA was formed, and Stanford Act and all the policies that made FEMA exist take place. And I'm
Oh,
paraphrasing. So that was '01. When Katrina happened, FEMA was put FEMA was essentially put under Homeland, but the Homeland
oh,
director didn't know FEMA. I mean, didn't know Katrina happened. So they're in charge of FEMA, but doesn't know that there's this disaster thing because again, it's so new. They just took a whole bunch of people, put them together, basically. Boom, you're at FEMA, and you're going to do this thing, and you're going to be great with it. But no one like it didn't exist. But emergency managers are like 60 years old compared to the fire service or the police service, engineering, uh,
okay.
anthropology, things like that. Like it's an infant in comparison. So
Okay.
there's still a lot of policies, nuances, influence, value that we're trying to prove is good, which often only happens what we call response funding, only happens after something happens. Maui wildfires. Maui happens,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden we're talking about workforce and how qualified should the person have been? Was the communications up to par? When was we're still asking all the questions after it happened
Hindsight. Yeah.
instead of being proactive and say, okay, in every jurisdiction, what are some things we should be looking at to be preventative versus reactive?
Okay. Gotcha. Well, here in 2024, United States is extremely polarized in quite a few areas. And one of the issues that we are is the matter of climate change. When you run across people who say climate change does not exist, what do you say? What's the conversation you have?
Show me the data. Show me the data. Like within my bubbles as a researcher or as a practitioner, no matter what you feel, the data shows that every like in 2020, that was the most active hurricane season in Florida's history. We're expecting this season to also be the most active, which means it superseded 2020, which means 2020 superseded 2015 and then 2011. So if every year is becoming worse and worse and worse, and we're seeing more rain and more flood and higher temperatures and lower temperatures and all these things, what's the source? What's the cause?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not saying that climate change is or is not happening. All I'm saying is that the data shows that there are changes in association with our environment.
Mm-hmm.
So how you feel in people's lives are in two separate hands. I'm going with the people's lives. If you're telling me it's going to be more dangerous, there's going to be more flooding, I'm going to lean on that side. If
Mm-hmm.
not, something I said at one of my speaking engagements in the past is that a doctor could save one life at a time. An engineer could probably save a couple hundred, couple thousand based on their structures and the decision. Emergency management, we deal with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of lives in a choice. And so I'm not going to err on the side of caution of it may not be an issue. I'm going to err on the side of caution that it will be an issue.
Yeah.
We think about the worst case scenario and we play in that sandbox.
Okay. Gotcha. So Florida, used to be the ideal place to come to, and now you folks are like us on California, just falling off and flooding and
We're here for now. I live on the second floor, so
get you some paddles in a boat.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it's just cultural. I don't even know how to explain it. Like it's cultural. People tell me, "Oh, it's a Cat 3 coming." All right, well,
Yeah.
I can either leave or I can stay, and I have the stuff if I choose to stay. Like you can't make nobody do anything. So it comes down to how do we just try to make it as preventative and move the water as quickly as possible, and allow them to make those choices. And that's kind of what it comes down to. No matter what it is, it's all a guessing game. I remember I was activated, and essentially that means that I was like sitting in a fortified structure, watching the storm for like, I think I was in there for like a week, just like sleeping at my desk type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the night that Ian hit, it was on track to hit Tampa Bay. And at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, before it hit the coast, it veered off a few degrees. So instead of like the side of the wall in that southeast quadrant hitting Tampa Bay, it shifted down, and we just got the north piece of it, and the eye
Mm.
basically hit Fort Myers. right? And that was literally 2 a.m. We were hunkered down. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to sleep because I know in a few hours it's gonna hit us. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to wake up and then not sleep for a long time. So I'm gonna get some
Yeah.
shut eye while I can. And when I woke up to just do a check because I know what time it was supposed to hit landfall, I'm looking, checking the maps. I'm like, hmm, why is it that far south?
So
So
explain
now
to
it's
us,
somebody else's problem.
not to cut you off, but explain to us what do you do in that situation? Do you go out and survey the what happened, or what do you actually do?
It depends on the role. So emergency management, think of it as the conference room for your community.
Okay.
So we have if we break up in groups, we have our health and medical people that deal with everything health and medical. We have our first responder people. We have our finance people to make sure the money's flowing to get the stuff.
Okay.
We have the stuff people to make sure we get the stuff we paid for, and then we have the operational people to help coordinate everything. So you'll have every department have 1 to 2 representatives, most likely your county administrator, most likely your mayor, most likely the powers that be in the room, because
Okay.
they give emergency management the ability to say make a choice. Um, and so, depending on your individual role, some people do go out and do what we call windshield assessments or
Okay.
go actually start tracking data systems and putting in data. Other people are manning shelters, make sure, pet shelters, people shelters, disability shelters, BOAS, collecting um, different donations to then redistribute into the community,
Okay.
evacuation routes. There's a lot, but
Okay.
it's
Okay.
basically like a big posh
Okay. Now
of,
I
of
don't
different
want to
functions.
I don't want to get you in too much trouble, but your particular governor, he gives you the funding that you need, your department, your organization, the funding you need to do the work that you do.
So I would say this is that I am not an employee of the state of Florida anymore. But the governor's office, the budget for emergency management in the state of Florida, Florida Division of Emergency Management does come from the governor's office.
Okay.
Um, so I'll leave that there. But at each level, it changes, right? At the county level, it may come from the county directly, or it may come from another agency. We kind of joked about the FEMA Homeland relationship. That's how a lot of emergency management departments are housed. They may be housed under police or law enforcement, Leo. They may be housed under fire. So the budget may be a fire budget with emergency management as in there
Okay.
versus it
Okay.
being separate. But it depends. Some places the emergency management, as it should, reports directly to the highest power. Same way the director of Homeland Security and everything report directly to the president. And there's others where it's like they have one ring between them and the powers that be.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me shift a little bit and get us out of trouble with the governor's office here. Um, I was roaming around your website and being nosy, as I always am, preparing for these shows, and I saw that you offer an online course, Project Atlas. Could you explain what that's about and the components of that?
Yeah, so Project Atlas is all tremendous leaders are servants. And so what we try to do, taking a step back, is that we have kind of a three-phase approach. We have this little manual, which I want to show you in my hand. We have like this little workbook, and it basically talks about like SWOT analysis and application to your life. So you can say, these are my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. They have some open-ended questions you can fill out, and that kind of gives you the idea of the direction we're going in, right, when it comes to personal development. Then we have a book, which is essentially a guide for, I'll say, high school sophomore to someone in their 30s, more
Mm-hmm.
so, depending if they're a traditional, non-traditional student, things of that nature. Um, but essentially, it's called "Sky is Falling," and takes each chapter is independent. So one chapter may talk about personal finance, another talks about leaving home, another one may talk about leadership, another one talks about image, and so that snippet of the workbook is a sliver of the leadership piece in the book.
Okay. Okay.
And then the online course that we have is the workshop. So you get the idea in the manual, you get the curriculum in the book, and then you workshop it by yourself on the website, where you can go into the personal finance one and you'll get an actual budget you can download and put your numbers in. And you'll get resources and say, hey, here's a credit person you can contact you with all their information to ask them about your credit. Here's this, here's that. And so we try to build that so that if someone wanted to, they can go and just get the thing that they need. They don't have to do the whole shebang, right? They can just, I want this chapter, go to the back. Here's my
Okay.
tips. Go to that class, go to that module, do the thing. In the perfect world, of course, we want to consume it all because it's all completely beneficial for you. But primarily, that's kind of the phase approach we have and the phase approach that we take.
Okay. So people can pick it up at any point in time. There's not like a set time that it rolls out. It's just a ongoing curriculum.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Now, another thing that I saw you do, and I can't say kudos enough for this, is you do a lot of youth mentorship. Much needed. Just hats off to you. And I want to trouble you to speak to brothers for a second. Um, why is it necessary for Black men to be in their communities with youth, mentoring youth, being active, involved? Why? What would you say to encourage more brothers to do that?
I would say two things probably. The first one being not me, but the data shows that whenever there
True
is a Black male
scientists.
influence, I'm just saying the data shows, you know what I mean? Whenever there is a male presence, especially, you know, in Black community, there's a Black male presence, that the risk for crime drops, right? And I'm not saying just like some guys just there on the stoop, like an active participant that's investing in the community, whether that be going to church, going to school, mentoring, coach, whatever. And most times, coaches are the most impactful male figures in any Black male's life.
Mm-hmm,
If
mm-hmm.
if they if they if they didn't have a dad, which is statistically speaking, most of them. The second part of it is you can't complain about the problem if you're not a part of the solution, right? So I can't sit here and complain about, oh, I have a little girl now, so I can't complain and say, oh, my little girl can't go play outside because it's dangerous if I haven't done anything in my entire life to make it less dangerous in my community.
True.
And of course, that's a larger problem, right? And me, the individual, may not be able to do something, but investing in school programs, and again, I know it's loaded, right? Each one of these things I'm mentioning have their own series of flaws and issues. But when I was team program director for the Boys and Girls Club Pensacola, I couldn't even get pizza delivered to the club for my teams. Like anytime I would call anybody to deliver food, like, oh yeah, no, we don't deliver there. Like you got to come pick that up. We're not driving. We're not sending nobody out there because that's how dangerous it was in that community. Like there's been times where like I would have a student with me, you know, mom got off work late in traffic, whatever, and I'm waiting for mom to show up, and there's a shootout across the street. So now I have to take the student behind my tire, and we have to hunker down,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these things that shouldn't take place. I have to walk around the building to make sure there was no paraphernalia, you know,
Mm-hmm.
before my students got there. That was just a part of my day. Like, you know, let me go and clean up, blah blah. Hey, bro, you got to move. You know,
Mm-hmm.
no offense, but you got to go. So there's no simple one fix, but your presence means something. And I didn't really realize that until one of my students, a young lady, came to talk to me about something that she probably should have been talking to her parents about. Uh, and so I pulled over like a female counselor, was like, "Hey, I need you to help me because she's talking to me and she should be talking to you." And like we had like a whole meeting about it. And her, the director of my club at the time, we're not, you know, we're talking about it, and she was like, you know, you handle it with grace. We appreciate you, blah blah. But remember, you're the most consistent figure these students see every day, a consistent male figure. Because in their schools, you got teachers coming in and out, right? They're there to get, say, I taught in a shitty school, to go get paid someplace
Mm-hmm.
else, or you know, wherever it is. And it didn't really hit me until she said that. I was like, oh, I guess so, right? Like I just didn't put two and two together. So for me, is that like it may not mean nothing, but I know I still have one of my students. She's on track to graduate from Florida State now, and when
Great.
I left her, she was like a junior in high school,
Great.
or things like that, right? So her life could have been different. One of my students dropped out, was able to get him back in school. He got his GED,
Awesome.
right? So
Awesome.
like it may not be anything like, oh yay, pat on the back, what was me? But it's like you may have done one small thing in someone's life that could change their trajectory. And sometimes they just need somebody to be there. Rather that rather that be, you know, more so of a positive reinforcement, which is really not my specialty. I'm more of a snatch you up reinforcer. Like, hey, I don't know why. I don't know why you thought this was
That's the
okay.
Caribbean thing, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know why you thought this was okay, but you will do this.
Not today. Not today.
Not today. You will do this. And I've always been a person who operated on raising the bottom line. Like no matter
Yes.
what, we raise the bottom line. Even if I don't need it, we're gonna raise the bottom line. We're gonna get the keys, and you can do what you want with them. You can never choose to use it. But if you fall and you realize, you know what, because I have, let's just say, a bachelor's degree, I know statistically speaking, I can access jobs that can get me 50, 60, 70K a year, which means I can have a fairly decent life
Yeah.
versus not having the bachelor's degree. I don't even get to apply for those jobs. So now I'm working 60-hour weeks, making 30 grand in Florida, in California. Yeah, you want to move to another state. You got to go to Iowa,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that's what it comes down to. What I tell at least a lot of my brothers and a lot of my peers is that you just gotta be a part of the solution, bro. And it doesn't take a lot. It could be you playing recreational basketball every Saturday at a certain park, and
Yeah.
there's a kid that's always there when you're there, and you play ball with them, you rough them up a little bit, you say some lines, you give them some direction every once in a while. That could be enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a heavy lift, but you have to do something. It's almost like an obligation that comes with uh, the the gift or curse, however you do it, of being a black male.
That's right. Beautiful. And I just don't think we understand or appreciate, when somebody grows up and they say, if it had not been for, when I was 7 years old, Dr. Richardson took the time to sit down with me for 10 minutes, and that totally changed the trajectory of my life. And I just don't think people understand the impact that that has.
Yeah, and often, and I think it's because most people look for it to be immediate, right? Like they want the gratification of, yeah, I did a good thing. But it's crazy. I remember I was a program director for a mentoring program um, in Orlando for my fraternity, and these kids are freshmen, sophomores, juniors in high school. And fast forward, I was at a convention one day, minding my own business, and guy I'd never seen before in my life walked up on me. It's like, oh, hey, how you doing, Brother Richardson? Hi. And you are like, bro, no idea you are. Like, you look mad young, so you probably just crossed yesterday. And he pulled his hair back because he had his jersey in his face. Pulled his hair back. I was like, no. He had, after with the scholarship that we gave him from that program, went to UCF, had a 3 point, has had. I think he graduated. I think he graduated this semester, or not next semester. 3.9 GPA in engineering. Initiated into the organization, student leader, president, blah blah blah. And I was just like, bro, I am proud of you, right? And all he did was do the same things we did in the program, just at the college level, right, in the college environment. So I think it's one of the things you give and you don't look to take, right? You just pay it forward and you just ask whoever you're giving it to, hey, bro, when it's your turn,
Beautiful. Passing the
you pay forward.
baton. Passing the
That's it,
baton.
bro.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So,
Speak to that real quick, because a lot of times when I talk to younger folks, I'm hearing an undercurrent of they don't see the value in college education. They don't see why they should go, especially when you talk about the price tag.
mm-hmm.
Why should these younger folks be looking at college?
I'm biased. I saw there was an article or a study recently that talks about X number of people feel like they can get great jobs without college degrees, and I think what it is just the idealism. Like, could you be a rapper? Sure. Could you be a pro athlete?
I'm
Of
gonna be a
course.
social
Could you
media
be a
influencer.
Of course. But statistically speaking, when you look at how many people have that job and then compare that to how many people their age exist, we're talking like 1%,
Mm-hmm.
5%. You don't even like to wake up in the morning. You telling me that you go above the ranks? So to me, there's a little bit of like hyper individualism and so much I mean my mind that they think they can do anything. I don't have a problem with pride, self confidence, self esteem, whatever. My issue, and maybe it's the athlete in me. My issue is I just don't like the guy who shows up with all the stuff to the court and can't play ball. Like, why are you here, bro? Go sit on the bench. And that's how people are approaching life. Like, they show up with all the stuff. Like, they say the right stuff, use the right buzzwords, put together the mechanisms that, in theory, could get you there. But that's just a framework. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I tell everyone, for me, education is the key because no matter what you do, you can't take it away, right? You can't go away, especially if you earned it. The second thing is that, again, I operate in the space of raising the bottom line. And so there's certain things that you just don't get access to unless you have these things.
True.
right? You could be a social media influencer and still can't do the job that I do because you don't qualify, no matter how you chop it.
True.
Right?
True.
Your opinion can be awesome,
True.
but sorry, bro. Policy is you need this. And for me, I don't even, and it's gonna sound a little bit backwards. I don't even think the real value is in the degree itself.
The life lessons.
Yeah, for me, the real value is everything that came alongside. Like people are like, oh, you got a degree, blah blah blah, bro. I went to college to play soccer. That's it. Like my grades were effective for me to be on the pitch. Then I was like, all right, I won't forget it. October 18, 2011, somebody was like, bro, you're inadequate. You can have be a part of this organization. And I was like, inadequate? Say less. Rose a GPA because I was like, clearly you don't know who you're talking to. Like you're acting like as if I'm trying. So started trying. GPA got up, and I was like, this is boring. I don't want to learn. If I have to learn, I don't want to learn about this. I want to learn about this. Got my grades up, got initiated, so on and so forth. Found him, was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I remember you.
You remember
when? Exactly. And it just kind of became a thing where it's like the friends that I made, the people that I met, the experiences that I had, the relationships that I formed, are all building blocks of who I am today. And now in the workforce, how that translates is that when I was working for the state of Florida, people were talking to me about politics. And when I saw people were doing, I was like, y'all call this politics? You ain't seen a chapter meeting yet. Like this is a joking comparison, right? Or they talk about hard work, and I'm like, you clearly have not worked multiple jobs while being in school full time and pledging at the same time. Clearly not. So this isn't hard work. It's just a heavy workload. There's a difference, right, between hours spent and effort spent. And so all the things that I picked up, the people, the experiences, for me, is worth their weight in gold. Student loans or not student loans. Now, if you just bouncing around getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, that's a different conversation. But if you go through within your 46 years, do a master's 2 to 3, do a doctorate 2 to 6, you're going to, your earning potential is going to trump what you spent.
Gotcha.
Now, if you choose to spend the money you make on your student loans, that's again another conversation, right? Like you want the car now because you're adopted, bro. I'm still driving my 2012 Honda Accord.
Smart move.
Till the wheels fall off.
Smart move.
Till the wheels fall off.
There you go.
So, and that's what it comes down to. Like, if I tell about go because the experiences you're going to have and the people you're going to meet is worth their weight in gold, either at the bachelor's level and at least throughout my own individual journey. Every step of my education, every step of my process to get where I am today, I picked up, I met, I experienced something that I lean on now, right? And it's got me jobs I've never applied for. It's got me writing book chapters and books I never thought I would, textbooks and stuff, and speaking on podcasts, right? And doing all these things. And it's like, how'd you do that? I went to school, bro. I went to school, and half the time I don't even talk about what I studied. No one wants to know about the anatomy, physiology of the human body, bro. Okay? But everything else, they don't really care about emergency management, right? It's super annoying unless you're dealing with it on the daily. We can just say FEMA, and people are like, oh, I get it.
But it open all these doors. So, because we know, well, let me see if I can quote the statistics, the data correctly. It's not that we don't have a large number of Black men going to college. We have a problem getting you guys to graduate. I think that's the statistic. But
100%.
In that, what is the approach or the technique do you think we can get more brothers to even go to that, apply for college? Is there something that we can do as a community?
I think having more people, and I'm talking to my peers predominantly, right? Like having more Black men who went to college talking to those who will be going to college. Like, no offense to your guidance counselor, but 9 times out of 10, your guidance counselor, at least when I was in school, was useless. Utterly useless. Like, there's no point. My coach, one of my coaches, now principal, Michael Randolph. I don't know if he's got any other titles, but Mr. Randolph, he's the president of our high school now. And when he was my coach, he had just graduated, I believe, from New Michigan, and was an All-American rugby player. Teaches English. Teaching English. And I'm at a white school, and he would pull me aside in his classroom all the time and be tearing my ear off, tearing my ear off. He's like, bro, you got too much talent. Like,
There's
and,
something
and
for
he
you.
wasn't talking to me like he wasn't talking to me like a teacher. He was talking to me like another brother. He's like, bro, listen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. Like, whenever I talk to my students, um, it's like Coach K, Mr. Rich, like whatever. It's no doctor, it's no big words. I'm like, yo, bro, let's keep it a buck. Like, we can go
Mm-hmm.
to Dave and Buster's. I'm gonna beat that butt in whatever the game is, and we go chat. Right? You feel like you big and bad, we can go to the gym and put on gloves.
There
We
you
can go to the
go.
court,
There you go.
because you have to speak their language.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, at least with young men, it's if I'm the mentoring program, you clearly going to try me, right? And at least that Bible I like to work in, you go try me, and I'm gonna have to set the tone and be like, hey, me, you, you can speak whatever language you need to speak to clarify that. And once that's established, it's a lot easier to set the tone, because they're like, well, what are you doing? Coach, what you doing today, bro? Oh, well, I'm doing blah, 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 blah. Why with us? I'm like, yeah, y'all listen to the guy in the front. I'm in the back doing this. How you do
Mm.
that? Right. And so they just never seen it, right? They never experienced it. They've never seen anybody they know to do that. And I say all that to say this is not only for other black men, other black boys, but I think it's also for other black girls.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
I have a daughter, she's 2. And the story I like to tell is I went transitioned from state government to local government, 7:30. At 8 a.m., my doctoral program opened up. At 1:49, unexpectedly, my daughter showed up like 2 months early. So I spent my mornings an hour away from home, working in an emergency operations center, doing my emergency management thing, and I would spend my nights in the NICU,
Mm.
back and forth, back and forth. And my goal was to get as much done as I could before her memory began, before she started going to school, because I want to be there, right? I want to go to
Mm-hmm.
the PTA meetings and the cheerleading competitions and whatever. And people are like, well, how do you do it? I was like, well, honestly, we put it like this, bro. My program was built for 6 years. My doctoral program is built for 6 years. I just told you my daughter is 2 years old, and she was born on the day I started my program. And my title is Dr. Richardson. So if I could do a 6-year program in 2, you just need the right motivation and the right consistency. And oftentimes that meant I couldn't travel with my friends to go to wherever and have fun, or spend money on getting a car or whatever. Like, all of my time and all my resources, bought a condo, got my education, hustled on the side. What do you do for free time? I play the game. I sit in the house. And now a lot of my friends are like, oh, I gotta go back to school. Oh, I gotta do this. I'm like, yeah, it's more expensive now. You're trying to buy something now. Like, I got it at a deal during COVID. They're trying to get rid of it. They're trying to get rid of it and go north.
Bargain
So
basement
I
prices, right?
grabbed it. And all my daughter knows, what I mean? Now she's bossy. All she knows is that she lives on nature preserves, where every morning she hears birds chirping. That's her alarm.
Beautiful.
And there's wood cranes walking around and stuff like that, and turtles and stuff. And
Beautiful.
her dad's a doctor. That's all she knows. We play doctor in the house all the time. No,
Mm.
no, 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 daddy doctor.
That's
And that's
beautiful.
her existence, right? So our people just need to see us do those things, not
Yes.
just hear us talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they need to see us in the hospitals and in the government and whatever, saying what really needs to be said in a way that impacts change and maintains employment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and that's the hard part, is that you can have all the opinions you want online. If you're not writing the policy, if you're not casting the votes, if you're not like Hill Harper, right, trying to get a seat and saying, like, what are we really talking about?
Yeah, that's right. Just bumping your gums. Just bumping your gums. Well, let me I have a random question I want to ask you, but I have one last
Mm-hmm.
question, I think. Um, the work that you do for the emergency response and the FEMA, are there internship programs for young people?
Yes, there are. So depends on where we're talking about. But
Okay.
long story short, there are internship programs for high school students, undergraduate students, graduate students, um, at FEMA HQ in DC, in your own local community. I actually had lunch. Actually, it was this week. Yeah, Tuesday this week, and met 2 high school interns that were working at my old county department,
Mm.
and they were interning there. Right. So there's You may have to do it through different venues. And emergency management still has a long way to go to kind of create more sort of a pipeline. But any person can say, "Oh, can I volunteer here? Right? Can I do an internship here?" Normally, an internship, just for those who may not know, an internship is in association with some form of formal education, right? While they can just volunteer, right? So if kids just want to volunteer over the summer, they may not have a program at their high school or college that has emergency management, but they're interested. They can always volunteer, and just do the stuff, get the certificates, check it out for themselves, kind of like shadowing almost. And then of course there are more formal programs. They're far and few, but some of them are getting to a point now where they're paid. A lot of for like college students, a lot of them are like paid internships. It's minimum wage, but it's better than working for free.
For the high school internships, just being nosy, are our kids exposed to those opportunities?
I want to say fundamentally not as much as they should be. And I say that because just looking at it from like an HBCU perspective, a lot of HBCUs don't have emergency management programs in their degree curriculums. A lot of universities, not just HBCUs, a lot of universities don't even have emergency management departments at their school. I think on my own predominantly white school that's been around since '76. A lot. '76. Whenever UCF was founded, that's my school was founded. But long story short, they've been around for under 100 years. And just last year, did they get their first director of emergency management. The job was a secondary duty of the lead law enforcement officer. And that's often how it ends up. Emergency management responsibilities often fall as a secondary duty to law enforcement, fire, facilities, public safety, stuff like that. So it's hard to say that there's, ample volunteer internship opportunities for the students when the structures that are supposed to be teaching it don't even have it themselves.
Gotcha. Okay, understood. Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you my random question, sir, because I have taken up, I've taken up more than my allotted time today. Thank you for being, thank you for, I mean, just pick your brain here. Okay, let me see here. Let's see here. All righty, I'm expecting some good stuff. We're going to show mom and dad this part right here. What is the most useful thing your mom or dad has taught you?
My mom, finessing. You can't finesse a finesser. My mom is the best of me. I like to say I got a little bit. Yeah, I like to say I'm a little bit better than she is now. So you can try. Yeah, I mean, she's seasoned. She did her time. She was the next tell, but my finesse skill, I probably say comes from my mom. So if you put it in writing, there's a strong probability I've worked my way around it.
And if she's watched you interact with your daughter, she's probably like, your daughter's.
Yeah, she realizes. Yeah, my daughter got
it. Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, finesse.
Yeah, and when it comes to my dad, I'd probably say it wasn't. I don't think it was like intended, but probably like organization. Like again, he's military, right? So a lot of things that he just demanded of the household, I wasn't that much of a fan of as a kid. But now that I'm grown, I'm like, I like it. Because when things are clean and organized, it takes the mental load off, right? It takes the stress off. You come home from a busy day, everything's done.
You can think
nice. You can just you don't have to. You can just exist. You can just float. I'm going to sit on the couch.
Everything is where it's supposed to be.
Everything has a home. Everything has a home. But as a kid, I hated it, right? Even though I didn't have much, it was still like I wasn't a fan. But those two things now, I tell my daughter the same thing. Go, you get done, go put it back. So that way, every time you know where it's at, you need something, you know exactly where it should be. And if it's not there, you probably lost it.
Was it just you growing up, or did you have brothers and sisters?
I have brothers and sisters. So growing up, it was me and my first sister on my mom's side. And then I also have 3 other sisters and a brother on my biological dad's side.
Oh, so you guys were fighting about chores and stuff like that in the house?
Yeah, me and my sister still fight all the time. We fought earlier this week. My mom just told us how tired she was. Yeah, that's my sister. I mean, it's just difference of opinion.
I still love you. Love you, though. That's my sister. All righty, sir. Well, tell us how we connect with you if we want to pick up the program or book you for a speaking gig or just learn how to be prepared for disaster. So just tell us how we connect with you.
The two best ways is first and foremost, you can go to our website at Richardson.com. That has a lot of the speaking stuff. It has the book, the manual, the shirt, all the stuff. If you just want to chat and get in contact with me, I am on LinkedIn, Kesley, Kesley, Kali, Kali Richardson on LinkedIn. Normally, there's a lot of letters after my name. So you'll put in Kesley Richardson LinkedIn. I most likely be the first one. And it'll be like DPA, MPH, CEM. More letters.
Let me clap for you. Awesome. I like that. So in 10 years, will we see you being the director of FEMA or something?
Probably not. Yeah, they don't pay enough. So just keep it honest. Yeah, 10 years from now, I don't know where I'd be 10 years from now. A couple years ago, I would tell you, I would have said yes to that probably. Like, oh yeah, I can see that. But now I have so many options.
Beautiful.
Do I really want to go work in the public service again? Probably not. I have a lot more bandwidth, and I get to do a lot more things in the private sector. Write the policy, do the stuff that goes to the FEMA director, or goes to CDC, HHS, so on and so forth. So I don't know if I would be going back to the public service, but I think I'm going to stay in the private side, probably with the organization I'm with now, hopefully for the next, 10, 20 years. And then whenever I get tired of doing that, I'll go teach. I'm a professor now at 3 different universities, but I may go full time, like lecture, research.
I love you. Just you go. Just from Auntie Lana, I'm so proud of you. I mean, just amazing work, just awesome. I mean, just kudos to you. Just great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for everything that you will do. And thank you to little Miss Mama for allowing me to spend some time with her daddy today. So give her my thank you as well. Okay.
I will. She's pouting.
That is all for this week's episode of the Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.